Hey everybody, welcome back to Tailwater Outfitters. We're doing this new series of videos here about kind of getting you started for certain types of fishing. We did one about freshwater fishing. Let's talk about inshore saltwater. Let's say you just moved here from Manitoba or upstate New York or Missouri. You're like, man, I've never really done any saltwater fishing. You're kind of freaked out, you're a little intimidated. It's really a lot like freshwater fishing. The water just tastes funny. So let's talk about what you need to do to get your foot in the door, kind of put a toe in the water with inshore saltwater fishing. Now again, just like with freshwater, I want to cover the water column. I want to have something for the surface, something for the middle, and something for the bottom, because I don't know what stage the fish are going to be in that day. So let's start with the bottom of the water column. Now, with saltwater, there's a lot of different options here. Now, number one, and I think it was Jose Wejebe said this, a lot of guys have said this, if I had to be stranded on a desert island, give me bucktail jig. I can fish it deep, I can fish it shallow, I can do all kinds of stuff with it. A bucktail jig, you can fish these in freshwater, you can fish them in saltwater, you can do anything with it. A bucktail jig will catch fish anywhere. So you gotta have that in your tackle box. And you don't have to have a big fancy tackle box if you don't want it. This is just a plain deep waterproof stowaway. It's got all kinds of dividers, but a great way to kind of get started. You can throw this in a backpack. Next thing we're gonna look at would be some jigs. This is the Gulp New Penny Shrimp, the 3-inchers. These have a lot of scent. They really stink. I mean, really, really, really stink. But they catch fish, especially fish that rely a lot on their sense of smell. Redfish, black drum, things like that. Trout like them. Snook will eat them. Anything will eat these things. It's a fantastic bait. And then we got this is the Slayer Sinister. This is the SST XL. This is a paddle tail. You can actually fish this in the middle of the water column. You can throw it out and just reel it in, or you can bounce it across the bottom, do whatever you want with it. But I tend to consider it a bouncing, a bottom bait. It's the way I fish it more than anything. But again, you can fish it in the middle of the water column. And these are, most of the time, they're going to be fished on a jig head. Here's the Mission Fishing jig heads. And honestly, to get started, you get you some 1/4 ounce and 1/16 ounce, kind of depending on the wind, depending on the current, and you're good to go. Last but not least, what I would put in the starter pack, actually 2 things. Number one, certain times of year, especially right now, pompano. You get a pompano jig. Now, if you don't know anything about fishing and you looked at one of these, you'd be like, what in the world is this thing? Why would I catch a fish on this? It's a goofy looking bait. They catch pompano and permit in jacks and all kinds of stuff. But they literally throw them out, let it sink to the bottom, kind of snap it at the bottom, and it sort of dances in the water column. But again, pompano jig. These are the crazy jigs by Pumpkin Jigs. Pompano love these things. And then finally, one of the staples, you get a pack of DOA Shrimp. These are one where you're going to work it really slow. It's very nondescript. It looks like a shrimp, but it's not like some of the live target stuff that looks exactly like a shrimp. But these things catch fish over and over. This one here is the glow. So literally, this thing glows in the dark, so you can fish it during the day, fish it at night. Fantastic bait. So that's going to cover the bottom of the water column. There's tons more options, but that is, you can go out and catch snook, trout, redfish, black drum, mangrove snapper, all kinds of stuff on those baits right there. If you want to work in the middle of the water column, I only picked 2 options here, and these are some fantastic baits. First one is going to be, this is the Live Target Swimbait series. This looks like a scaled sardine. Scaled sardines are like snook candy. They're very similar to what a lot of people refer to this as a greenback. A greenback is actually a threadfin shad, which a snook will eat a threadfin shad. Tarpon love threadfins. Tarpon will eat a scaled sardine, but snook love scaled sardines. You know what I mean? So this thing here is literally, I call this a dummy lure because any dummy can fish it. Throw it out, reel it in. That's it. Now I do think it's more effective when you're sight fishing, when you can actually see a snook, let's say cruising the beach, or 2 or 3 or 4 snook, and you can get this in front of them. All you got to do is get one of them to look at it and come after it, and they'll take off, and because it's competitive nature in them. But this is a fantastic bait. That's going to cover the middle of the water column. And then a Mirrodine. I mean, my goodness, Mirrodine have been fishing here for 500-600 years probably. I think the Spanish explorers came over, were fishing Mirrodines. This is the Mirrodine. This is a jerk bait. This is going to suspend, twitch bait they call it. It's going to kind of dart in the water column, move around. It's going to look like a wounded bait fish. Again, millions and millions of fish, especially snook, trout, redfish, have been caught on a Mirrodine. So try that out. Then at the top of the water column, here's 2 more baits. Again, this is the Head & Super Spook Jr. in the bone silver color. Early morning, late evening, calm water. this thing's fantastic. I mean, throw it out there, let it sit for a second, put a little bit of slack in your line, just kind of work the rod like that, and that thing will just, a little bit of slack in the line, it'll make it just dart side to side, and then all of a sudden, they're on it. And Snook seem to love this thing. It looks like a wounded bait fish. And then another one that a lot of guys fish in freshwater, but we found we like them in saltwater too, are these Yozuri wake baits. Branson, one of the guys who works here, loves these things. I use them more in freshwater. He uses them in fresh and saltwater. But again, this one's just to throw it out, reel it in bait, and it comes through the water like this, just below the, I mean, literally like a half-inch underwater, right on the surface, and they'll come up and just absolutely destroy it. And then last but not least, let's talk about some terminal tackle, because one of the things about saltwater fishing is there's a lot of times you're going to fish with live or natural baits. The first thing you got to have is you got to have some fluorocarbon leader. Certain times the water's crystal clear out there, and this is going to be something you're going to tie to your main line. Most guys fish braid for inshore, but they're going to tie on anywhere from 3 to sometimes 10, 15 feet even of leader. They're line to line together, and that's going to be a virtually invisible attachment from their braid to their hook. So you got to get yourself some leader. You're going to want to get yourself some, especially if you're fishing like with live bait or whatever, you're going to want to get yourself some split shot sinkers. Always good to have. If you got a lot of current moving and you want to kind of weigh it down, slow it down, great to have. Sometimes you want to have a float. I always say this, if you're fishing, let's say with a couple of buddies, and you got a live well full of real scaled sardines, don't fish them all the same way. Have one guy put it on a float, one guy maybe hook it through the nose, and one guy hook it through the belly, and fish different ways. If the guy that's hooking it in the nose starts catching fish left and right, everybody go over and hook it through the nose and free line. You see what I mean? But it's good to have some weights with you. These are some floats with you. These are weighted floats. Fantastic. Another one that they used to call a dummy. Actually, we'll get to that in just a second. First, let's talk about hooks. Circle hooks. Great way. You don't set a hook with a circle hook. If you're used to back home getting bit and wham and setting the hook real hard, circle hook, you don't have to. You just turn and put pressure on them, and 99% of the time it's going to hook them right in the corner of the mouth. It helps to keep the mortality rate for the fish, so you're not killing and getting a lot of fish gut hooked. So these are the Owner Mutu Light Circle Hooks, great inshore. I believe this is a needle point, needle sharp. Oh no, this is the hangnail point. If you are going to fish for let's say trout, it's good to get a needle point hook, needle point circle hook, because it doesn't tear a hole in their mouth. And then last but not least, let's talk about this. This is a Cajun Thumb. This is the popping cord. Now, I remember hearing, I think it was. Who's the guy that does the, oh man, he's from the other coast, got a TV show. Anyway, he talked about how when they used to fish Redfish tour, they used to, as a captain, they would make fun of these. They would call this a dummy lure, any dummy could fish it. And literally, you tie a piece of leader on the top and connect it to your line, then you tie some leader on the bottom, and you put a jig, put a DOA shrimp on it, a Gulp Shrimp, whatever. You're going to throw that out there and let it sit for a second, and then you just go like this and make it make this noise. And that noise in the water, for whatever reason, sounds like fish feeding, and they come up to look at it, and they swim over there, and they're like, hey, what's going on? Oh, look, there's that looks like food, I'll eat it. And like I say, he said he used to make fun of them until he started doing it on the Redfish tour, and guys are like winning tournaments with these things. And it's just a popping cork, Cajun Thunder, whatever you want to call it. DOA makes one, Cajun Thunder makes them. Again, a fantastic way. It's great if you're fishing with kids because it gives them something to do. Kids can get bored real easy. If you just throw a bait out there and let it sit there, next thing you know, they're digging around in the bait and they're eating shrimp by themselves. It's kind of gross. So something like this lets them go out and they're actually going to be doing something. They're going to be calling the fish up. And then when they catch a fish, they're like, oh my gosh, I did that. So it's a fantastic way to get them started. So if you just moved here or if you're just getting into saltwater fishing, come down and see us. We'll get you hooked up. Again, about $100. All this stuff right here is 100, 110, 115 bucks, something like that. And you're ready to fish for some saltwater fish. And the only other thing I'd recommend is get you some fish grips because a lot of the stuff in the saltwater's got some teeths and they will bite you. I'm kidding, it's not that bad. But it is a good idea to have you some fish grips. So come check it out right here at Tailwater Outfitters on US 19, just north of Curlew Road at the north end of the Dick Norris Buick GMC parking lot where all the boats are. We'll get you squared away.